Hello, my little mathematicians. Today we're going to learn how to solve area equations. So basically, they're going to give you the area and one or two side lengths, and then you have to find the missing side length. We're going to do that by using the area formulas, okay, to find the missing side lengths. Several things to keep in mind. Remember that side lengths are measured in singular units. So when you find the missing side, it'll be like centimeters, inches, feet, etc., just like perimeter. But the area is measured in square units. So if they ask you to find the area, its units will be like centimeters squared, inches squared, feet squared. But if it asks you to find the perimeter or like the base or the height, then it'll just be singular units. All right. Something that we need to know is the different area formulas. So what formula you use depends upon what shape you're dealing with. So a parallelogram, and you notice how we're only doing one formula, we're only doing the area formulas, because perimeter doesn't actually have a formula. It's just the outside of a shape. But area, they're all different depending upon what shape you're dealing with. So what's the what's the formula for a parallelogram? It is area equals base times height, okay? A trapezoid, its area formula is 1/2 base 1 plus base 2, because remember it has two different base measurements because it's not parallel on the sides, and so when they intersect, it makes your two bases different measurements. So you add the two base lengths together, multiply it by the height, and then divide it by 2. So you can write the formula like this or like this, because multiplying by 1/2 is the same thing as dividing by 2. So either formula is fine. It's just a matter of preference of what you prefer. A rhombus is the same thing as a kite. They both have the same formula. It's 1/2 diagonal 1 times diagonal 2, because there's two different diagonals. Again, multiplying by 1/2 is the same thing as dividing by 2. So it's whichever formula you prefer. Same thing with a triangle. A triangle is, if you look at a rectangle and cut it in half, there's a triangle. So one triangle is half of a rectangle or parallelogram. So it's 1/2 base times height. And that's the same thing as if you did base times height divided by 2. Now you have all of your different formulas that you need. So your steps in order to find a missing length is first draw a picture of what they give you, label that picture with the information, write out the area formula depending upon what shape they tell you you're dealing with, because as we can see, each shape has its own unique area formula. Then you just plug in or substitute the numbers that you're given into the formula, and then you just solve the equation like normal. So let's go ahead and try some. Okay, the first one, example 1, says you have a parallelogram, and it has an area of 60 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and draw myself a parallelogram. Okay, whether I choose to draw it like that or like that doesn't really matter, right? Okay, so parallelogram. And it says it has an area of 60 inches squared. And sometimes you might notice that they put that information like inside the shape. And that lets you know, hey, that's the area, the total measurement inside. And then they also said the base is 12 inches. Okay, or if you chose to do it like this. So then they want to know what's the height, and that's always the perpendicular distance. And if you drew it this way, then it maybe be there. So what's that measurement? What's the height? We don't know. So I drew my picture, I labeled it. Now let's write out the area formula for a parallelogram. Its area equals base times height. What did they tell me? They told me the area was 60. So I'm going to replace A with 60. They also told me the base was 12. So I'm going to replace the B with a 12. And then keep H as H because we don't know what H is. We don't know what the height is. That's what we have to solve for. And now you just solve it like normal. So it's saying 60 is equal to 12 times what? So to figure that out, what's the inverse of multiplying by 12? Dividing by 12. And whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other. I do that because 12 divided by 12 is 1. So now you have 1h. I got h by itself. And then on the other side, since you divided by 12 here, you need to divide by 12 there as well. And 60 divided by 12 is 5. So when you go to write your answer, this was talking about the height. So is it inches or inches squared? Well, the height measurement is just inches. So there you go. Your height is 5 inches. Number 2 says you're dealing with a rhombus. A rhombus is like a slanted square. Technically, its formula is base times height because it's a type of parallelogram, but they never give me the measurements of the base and the perpendicular height. They usually give me the diagonal lengths. So then I'm going to use this formula of 1/2 diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. They said the area is 48 feet squared, and one diagonal is 8 feet. So then what's the length of this diagonal? Well, let's write out my area formula. A rhombus is diagonal 1 times diagonal 2 divided by 2. So then one diagonal is 8. The other diagonal, we don't know, and over 2. And you're like, wait, I have 2 variables. Oh, that's right, because they actually told me that the area is 48. So I'm going to replace the A with 48. Now you only have one variable. So let's simplify this side. It's saying 8 divided by 2. Well, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So now you have 4D equals 48. How do you get D by itself? I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 4. Because 4 divided by 4 is 1. So now you have 1 times D, or just D. And whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. 48 divided by 4 is 12. So my diagonal is equal to 12. We were talking about feet, so 12 feet. Number 3 says a triangular shaped poster has an area of 16 meters squared and a base length of 8 meters. So let's go ahead and draw that shape. Triangle. Okay. The base is 8. And that perpendicular height, we don't know. But they told me the area is 16. So what's my formula for area of a triangle? It's 1/2 base times height, or base times height divided by 2. Either way. Remember, you can always pause the video and try it yourself, then unpause it and check yourself. So I'm going to wipe this out right here because they actually told me what the area was. They said the area was 16. So I'm going to replace the A with a 16. Then the 1/2 just stays 1/2. They told me that the base is 8, and I need to solve for the height. Well, 1/2 times 8, what's half of 8? That's 4. H equals 16. Okay, I simplified the right side as much as I can. So let's get H by itself. What's the inverse of multiplying? Dividing. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. I did this because 4 divided by 4 is 1. So you have 1H, which equals, what's 16 divided by 4? 4. So my height is 4 what? It was meters. hopefully you got those right. If not, we still have a few more problems. And again, why don't you try some of them first yourself? Pause the video, try them, then unpause the video and check yourself. Okay, number 4, trapezoid. You can draw a trapezoid like this or like that. It doesn't matter. It's just when they give you the perpendicular height, you would either say, here's your height separating your two bases, or there's your perpendicular height separating your two bases. Okay. Just in case they give you problems where there's your trapezoid and you're like, wait a minute, it doesn't look like that. Like this is your base. No, your bases are always the parallel sides. So see how if I extend those lines, they would never intersect. And if I extend the sides here, those do intersect. So those are not your bases. This line and this line is your base. Here, this can't be a base because the opposite side intersects. But this one right here and that one right there, those are your two bases because if you extend those sides, they're parallel. They'll never intersect. Trapezoids only have one pair of parallel sides. I wanted to show you that because sometimes they rotate figures. So it's important to know where your bases are. All right. They told me it has an area of 45 square centimeters or centimeters squared. And then your bases are 10 and 5 or 10 and 5 or 10 and 5. And then it wants you to find the perpendicular height. So the height is always the perpendicular distance, so the vertical straight line that comes down at a right angle, and it separates your two bases from each other. See that pattern? Okay, now that we have my picture drawn, let's go ahead and write out my formula. Area equals 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. I like this way better than the over 2, just because I've noticed a lot of people tend to forget to divide by 2 if they do it the other way. Okay, my area, they told me, was 45. Bring down the 1/2. My two bases are 5 and 10. And bring down your h. On this side of the equation, you need to simplify things first. So inside the parentheses, what's 5 plus 10? 15. Okay, and then I bring everything else down. I just simplified the parentheses and then brought down my h. My 1/2 equals 45. I can still simplify this side because I can do half of 15. What's half of 15? That's 7.5. And then I almost am close to having h by itself. This is saying 7.5 times h. Well, what's the inverse of multiplying? Dividing. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. I do this because now I can figure out 7.5 times what is 45. Well, 7.5 divided by 7.5 is 1, so you have 1h, equals 45 divided by 7.5 is 6. So my height is 6, we were talking about centimeters. By the way, from this step right here, I prefer doing this way, but sometimes if you have a fraction and it's going to give you an ugly number, if you do like a third of this, I mean, that would be pretty, but what about a fourth of this? And you're like, ugh, I don't want that number. You could get rid of this by multiplying by 2. Now those cancel, and whatever you do to one side, you do the other. So now you have 90 equals, those canceled and became, right, 1, because half of 2 is 1. And now you have 1 times 15, which is just 15. Bring down your h. And then you would have, okay, 15 times what is 90? So divide by 15. That's 6 equals h. Again, you still get the same answer. I prefer this way, but just in case it's like an S-back question or something, and they already have all the steps worked out for you, and they get you like this far and you have to complete it, that's why it might work out that way. Some people might get rid of this by multiplying it by the denominator so that they cancel and become 1. But whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So you can multiply or divide by whatever you want, as we can see, as long as you do it to both sides. So sometimes some people do that to have easier numbers to deal with. Okay, my next one. If you haven't tried any yourself yet, please try this one. You have a parallelogram. And again, you pause the video, try it. Now you're back with us. You unpaused it. Okay, so parallelogram has an area of 150 square meters or meters squared. The height is 15 meters. What is the base? So your formula for area of a parallelogram is area equals base times height. Now you plug in what you know. I know that the A, or area, is 150. My base, I don't know, but I know that my height is 15. So 15 times what is 150? Well, the inverse of multiplying is to divide. Those cancel and you get B. But whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So 150 divided by 15 is 10, which means my base length is 10 meters. Sometimes they'll give it to you in a word problem, and sometimes they'll actually give you the pictures. A little bit nicer. Okay, this is what? I mean, it's nicer they have the picture, but now they didn't tell me the shape. I have to decide. Hopefully from looking at it, you can tell that's a parallelogram. So then you have to write down the formula for area of a parallelogram is area equals base times height. Plug in what you know. My area is 35. My base is right here, even though you're like, this is my base. Well, this is the same as this, right? So it's 7. And then your perpendicular height coming down, we don't know. How do you solve for h? Well, 7 times what is 35? So to figure that out, do the inverse of multiplying and divide. Those cancel, become 1 times h is just h. And 35 divided by 7 is 5. So your height is 5 inches. This is actually written terribly. It's centimeters and inches. We wouldn't have done that to you. So whether you saw the centimeters or the inches, I'll accept 5 centimeters as well. We're going to pretend that this was both the same unit. So you can say that this was 35 centimeters squared or that this was 7 inches. Either way, we wouldn't make you change from centimeters to inches in this section. Okay. All right. Number 7. Number 7. What shape is that? Hopefully you can see. It's a triangle. And what's your formula for area of a triangle? It's base times height divided by 2. Now plug in what you know. Your area is 32. Your base length, we don't know. Your height is right here, which is 8. And it's all over 2. So I can simplify this side first. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So now you have b times 4, or 4b. And bring down your equals 32. How do you get b by itself? Well, 4 times what is 32? Divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, b. And 32 divided by 4 is 8. So it's 8 inches. Finally, example 8. How long is the other diagonal? Well, what shape is that? I think it's a slanted rhombus, but it could be a kite. The good thing is, if you can't decide, they both have the same formula. It's 1/2 diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. They tell me the area is 12. Bring down your 1/2. What's this diagonal? Well, 3 plus 3 is 6. So that diagonal length is 6. And then we don't know this diagonal. To simplify, half of 6 is 3. And now you have 3 times what is 12? We'll divide by 3 to figure that out. You get d equals 12 divided by 3 is 4. So the other diagonal is 4 meters. Okay, what shape is that one? It's not a parallelogram because, yes, these two sides are parallel, but these ones, if you extend them, they'll intersect, right? right there. They intersect. So not a parallelogram. These two, when they intersect, you only have one pair of parallel sides. It's called a trapezoid. So my formula for area of a trapezoid is 1/2 base 1 plus base 2, because their bases are two separate lengths. Your bases are always the parallel sides, times your height. The height is the perpendicular distance that separates your two bases. Okay, plug in what you know. You know your area is 27. One base is 7, the other base is 5, and we don't know the height. Okay, parentheses first. 7 plus 5 is 12. And then you can still simplify this side. Half of 12 is 6. So now you have 6h equals 27. So 6 times what is 27? If you divide by 6, plug that into your calculator, 27 divided by 6 is 4.5. So your height would be 4.5 yards. Now, there is two versions of this problem. We have another version where we said the area was 24 yards squared. So if you have that version, okay, all that's replaced is 24 is the area, 1/2, you still have your two bases of 7 and 5. 7 plus 5 is 12. Half of 12 is 6. So you still get to this same point right here. It's just instead of an area of 27, you have an area of 24. And now when you go to solve for your height, you divide by 6 on both sides, and you get 24 divided by 6 is 4. Bring down your equals, bring down your h, and you get your height is 4 yards. So depending upon the version you had, if you had an area of 27 yards, you should have gotten 4.5 yards for your height. If you had the version with 24 yards squared as your area, then you should have gotten 4 yards 4 yards even as your height. All right, hopefully you feel a little bit more comfortable with all your different area formulas. Okay, these will be provided to you, but you need to know based upon the shape. So hopefully you can identify the shapes. And then, okay, based upon that shape, I'm going to use this formula or that one. And then once you identify what shape it is and you have the correct area formula, plug in the information you know, and then just solve the equation like normal. Congratulations, my little mathematicians. It's all coming together. I hope you're proud of yourself.